Hello, everyone. Great to see and be with you all today. Let's just start off with John Roger. Let's just get going with right into the heart of the matter and just hear from JR.
The divine presence is exactly that thing that is present everywhere. And I could take you to a radical point of view and tell you that there really is no soul. There really is only this presence that is omnipotent, omnipresent at all times. But we talk about the soul as that individualized energy to give you a sense of well-being so that you can wave your dilemma away as you rise up in consciousness to find out you are what you have always been, and you are the one you've been looking for. If you're not pleasing yourself by being who you are, I got some sad news for you. That's tough, because that's all there is. If you haven't found that place yet inside of you that is full and brilliant, that's tough, because that's all there is. But when you get there, that's enough, because that's all there is. That's all there is for everybody on all the levels of consciousness. The bright, brilliant radiance of our beingness.
Well, as you know, I play those every week and every chance I can get as a deep reminder of who we are in reality. And of course, then the question becomes, well, why don't we know that? I think that's probably the real spiritual question. Not why do we know that, but why we're not living in that. I think most of us know that. It's just like, why aren't we living in that more? That quality of that bright, brilliant radiance of who we are. That we're the ones we've been looking for. And as we go into this meditation, and you can begin by closing your eyes. There's nothing I'm doing that is going to be anything special at all. To start to get in touch with that bright, brilliant radiance. That if we are the ones that we've been looking for, then basically the looking for stops here. In a sense, we've arrived. We've found the treasure, and it's us, and it's inside of us. So I'd like us to explore this a little bit today in this meditation, and just have the idea that part of what takes us out of this awareness of knowing that we are this bright, brilliant radiance is that we're not identified with that. So that when we think of who we are, we usually don't think of ourselves as being soul, I'm love, I'm joy, I am peace. And although probably consciously, if I say that to you, you'll probably say, well, no, I know I'm joy, I'm love, I'm peace. But I'm not talking really to that level. It's more the basic nature of ourselves, a subconscious level or the unconscious level that kind of just runs underneath the surface, under which we don't feel quite as unconditional as we would like. That unconditional presence. And can we hold ourselves in unconditional regard, unconditional acceptance, unconditional loving? And part of what takes us out of this, for want of a better thing to say, is that it's kind of not our fault in a way. There's just been a process. And if we can understand that there's nothing to blame, there's nothing to judge, something happened to us at some point in our lives. Usually it's early on in childhood, but it could be at any point. And we could call it a trauma, a shock. It doesn't have to be a huge deal, but sometimes it is a broken heart, a loss of someone we love very, very much in our lives, an illness. Could also be abuse, being told that we're no good, that we're not going to amount to much, that we accept as having something wrong with us because of that event or occurrence. And that's the first step. Something happens. The second step is that we contract around that. We shut down. Someone breaks our heart, leaves us, betrays us. It's like men are no good, women are no good, whatever we build around it. Some kind of judgment. An accident, we can just say, well, I'm no good. And then the identification with that. I'm the kind of person where not good things happen to. I'm the kind of person where there's always something goes wrong. I'm not a psychologist or therapist. I'm sure those of you who are could go on and explain this far more articulately than I am. But I just want to give you the idea of how something happens, we contract around it, and then we form an identity around it. And we go through life with that kind of identity. And that identity usually has a story around it. We tell a story about how things happened. And what happens is that events start to coalesce around that identity, which only reinforce that identity. See, I knew that that would happen. I knew that that was going to happen because that's the kind of person that I am. Now, interestingly enough, any kind of identity, unless it really is directed into who we truly are, is going to be a false identity. And that is going to cause a certain split in our consciousness. So today's meditation is really coming into more of who we are as an unconditionally loving being. And we ask for the highest and purest light from the highest and purest source to surround and fill each one of us and the space we're in for the highest good. And we ask that any negativity or karma, dis-ease or disturbance, worry or concern that can be lifted and transmuted from us at this time, that be taken into this light and dispersed back into the nothingness from which it came. Again, for our highest good through grace. And in this process, I usually like to have the presence of a master. I always like the Lord Jesus Christ. I always ask for that to be with us, guiding, assisting, blessing, and protecting us. But for you, it may be another personage. It's completely fine. Whatever really works for you is really what we care about. And I always also like to bring in John Roger, my spiritual teacher, and spiritual teacher to many of you. John Roger's energy and presence to infuse all that we're doing here for the highest good. So we want to create this space of safety, so you can allow yourself to completely let go. And all we're doing here is moving into this unconditional presence. I'll just give you a quote from John Roger here. You practice being in the presence of soul by being flexible and open in your mind and emotions, by looking at people and loving the good and the bad equally. Should you love others more than you love yourself? No, because it is through loving yourself unconditionally that you enter into the spirit that resides within you. That's when you become a real joy to be around. That's when you discover the soul. So here's a real key from John Roger, isn't it? I mean, maybe it's just something that you can take on and meditate for the rest of the year. It is through loving yourself unconditionally that you enter into the spirit that resides within you. It's interesting as well that Jia mentioned by looking at people and loving the good and the bad equally. That unconditional present, right? Loving the good and the bad equally in other people. But we can also take that to ourselves. I mean, that's part of the unconditional quality, loving the good and what we've labeled the bad inside of us. Now, if there's any hesitation about loving yourself completely, to me that's pure gold, because that just lets us know the next thing we need to resolve and bring into the loving. So it's kind of resolving and dissolving it back into just the energy and back into loving. Any hesitation at all, any glitch in this landscape of pure unconditional loving where the good, the bad, there isn't really a good or a bad, you're just loving it all equally. And as you take that inside, into that inner landscape, you may feel, well, there is something that you can't quite love, you haven't quite come to terms with. And I would say to you, where do you feel that in your body? Or I may say to you, how does that make you feel? And you could say sad or upset, angry, any number of things. And then I would say to you, where do you feel that in your body? And you may say, well, I feel it in my stomach. I'll say, well, okay. Where else would you feel it? You know, well, perhaps in my shoulders, or maybe you say your throat, your chest, wherever you find it. Then I would say, well, just allow yourself to be aware of both those sensations simultaneously. And do nothing. And then just feel the sensations change. As you just maintain awareness of them, they're not static. As soon as you become aware of these two sensations, wherever you've identified them, they will begin to change. You don't try and stretch or move or do anything with them. Just your awareness of both sensations simultaneously will begin to get them to change. They'll change by themselves. You're not forcing them. You're just doing nothing. At some point you can just go back and just see how that's feeling inside of you. Many times it's a neutral feeling, or if you're still feeling those sensations change, please stay with them. And then come back into this place of unconditional loving. And that thing that was bothering you before will no longer be bothering you. And if it does bother you, just go back to what we said. How does that make you feel? Where do you feel it in your body? Where else do you feel it? Be aware of both those sensations simultaneously. Do nothing and let those sensations change as you maintain your awareness of them. And then come back to this unconditional loving. This is John Roger. Who you truly are loves unconditionally. When your relationships are characterized by unconditional loving and acceptance, you'll find that your defenses are replaced by an openness that encourages sharing and release. You create a mutual, loving environment without judgment, which is a powerful spiritual place to be in. You're probably sinking into that quality in a good way, just feeling your way into it, relaxing into that quality of unconditional loving, unconditional presence, unconditional regard. Maybe your body actually feels more alive as those things you've been identifying with dissolve. You can take any limitation, anything that you've contracted around, anything that you've identified with. I don't have enough money, for example. Kind of identifying with a kind of a lack, perhaps, a not enoughness. Again, nothing bad. It's more just, again, the gold. We found something that we can work on, that we can release. So you may say to yourself, yes, I don't have enough money. How does that make you feel? Very sad, very angry. Feel like I got a bad deal in life. Feel like God has abandoned me. Where do you feel that in your body? In my back? Where else? In my neck? Be aware of both of those sensations simultaneously. Do nothing and let the sensations change as you maintain your awareness of them. Let them change. No wiggling, no deep breaths. You're not doing anything at all. Just maintain your awareness on those sensations and let them change. As this takes place, there's nothing that really need happen. It's not a cathartic experience, kind of neutral experience, really. You may feel your shoulders relax a little bit, or you may find yourself in a clearer space. But there's nothing really that you need to do except just be aware and come back into that field of unconditional presence. This is John Roger again. Once we have gained the experience of unconditional loving, we know that there really is no other way, because any other way causes too much disturbance inside us, and we lose our peace. There is nothing passive about this inner peace. It is active and dynamic, and it spurs us on to live our lives creatively. And so allow yourself to have this experience of inner peace. Once we have gained, just repeating the quote here, the experience of unconditional loving, we know that there really is no other way, because any other way causes too much disturbance inside us. Just sit with that unconditional loving. Just be with it. Keep returning to it. And we'll just have some moments of silence here. And what we're practicing in this meditation is to make this space of unconditional presence more familiar to us. Again, what John Roger was saying there, once we have gained the experience of unconditional loving, we know that there really is no other way, because any other way causes too much disturbance inside of us. So again, anytime we're not in that space of unconditional loving and something comes forward from within us, we don't go hunting for stuff, but perhaps the unconscious just surfaces something that at this time is for our highest good to be healed. Something that we've been doing that we haven't been proud of. For whatever reason we're doing it, that we've become identified with it. How does that make you feel? Again, maybe emotions of sadness, of anger, of regret, frustration. Could go on and on with all the possibilities, but I think you get the idea. And then where do you feel that in your body? If you're feeling frustrated or angry or sad, you're going to feel it somewhere in your body. It has to register there. And you may say, well, I don't feel anything in my body. Then just feel not feeling. What does that feel like? Whatever it is you're feeling, try to find another place, another sensation somewhere else. So you have at least two sensations. You may feel three. You may say, well, actually, I'm feeling it in my stomach, my shoulders, and my neck. Or I'm feeling it in my back, my chest, my arms. Feel all of those sensations simultaneously and do nothing and allow them to change. Don't wiggle, don't breathe. I mean, when I say don't breathe deeply. Don't change the pattern of your breathing. Oftentimes people will start to fidget, but we're not doing any of that. We're not being stiff or rigid, just not changing, not being unnatural. Just let them change. Don't do anything. Don't do anything to make them change. They will change as you maintain your awareness on the sensations simultaneously, and you do nothing. They'll resolve and go into a nothingness. And usually there's no drama around this. It's just a nothingness. When you then go back to see what was bothering you, it's kind of disappeared. It's no longer bothering you. And so you can return to the unconditional presence. John Roger tells us that unconditional loving is the action of loving you. And what you think about me or say about me is within you. Whether or not you are being unconditional in your loving is the ultimate test of all things that come your way. The test is not about my unconditional loving towards something out there. The test is whether I can be unconditional in my loving towards me. So we're getting quite a few keys here. That it's through loving yourself unconditionally that you enter into the spirit that resides within you. But once we have gained the experience of unconditional loving, we know that there really is no other way, because any other way causes too much disturbance inside us. And that whether or not we are being unconditional is, in our loving, is the ultimate test of all things that come our way. We started out by saying that we're loving the good and the bad equally. So if there's something that you did or something that happened to you that stands between you and the fullness of that unconditional loving, you just ask yourself, what emotion are you feeling? How does that make you feel? What emotion comes to mind? And then just see where that's located in your physical body. Could be anywhere. A lot of times it's in the energy centers, the pit of our stomach, chest area, the neck area, head, but also the back of our heart, pelvis, sometimes our thighs, our feet, our hands, knees, anywhere. Wherever you find it, just find 2 spots at least, maybe 3, and then be aware of those sensations simultaneously. Do nothing. and let them change. It may seem unusual to let them change. I mean, don't we have to do something to make them change? And the answer is no. As you become aware of them simultaneously and absolutely genuinely do nothing, they will change. We're feeling the feelings, but in a very clear and structured way, so that we can allow for this maximum resolution. We could call it a release, but it's more like a resolution. It is a letting go, but not that we let go. We're not doing anything. It lets go. To state the obvious, again, this is John Roger. To state the obvious, unconditional loving is loving unconditionally. But it is also more than that. It is to align your mind and emotions and your body with that loving, and to move through the world with its illusions, intrigue, and the dilemmas of life, and stand in the midst of it all as an unconditional lover, loving unconditionally, regardless. The one man or woman with their heart full of unconditional loving is a majority, regardless of what other people are doing. Yes, we're still going to go through this life doing cruddy things and making mistakes. And that's when we will need more loving than ever before. Those moments are when you really get to experience that unconditional loving. Those moments are when you really get to experience that unconditional loving really is loving unconditionally. Because there usually is less opportunity to practice loving when everything is going your way. And we certainly have plenty of choices these days, don't we, to exercise that quality of unconditional loving. As we look at all that is going on in the world, plenty of practice opportunities. But I hope that you take away from this that someone once said to John Roger, I don't know that I can love it all. And JR said to them, you don't have to love it all. You have to love yourself through it all. So I'm hoping that you'll take this quality of unconditional loving into your lives as you slowly come back into the room, wiggling your fingers and toes. Thank you all for joining us. So God bless you all. And although you're thanking me, it does take a team. I just couldn't just do this without the support of, I have Paul Wilcox, I have Jake with me, and usually I have Chris on this technician. We have Stella, who just puts all her love into being the host. And we have Maria Jose Marignon, who's translating it all simultaneously behind the scenes. So it does take a village, as they say. And it's just a great privilege to work with these people and to be with you all. And God bless you all. My heart is full, and hopefully you leave and take this with you into your weeks. God bless you, and we'll see you next week or on Thursday. It'll be lovely. Take good care. God bless.